This is the CSC SYS Fence from Benchdogs, an aftermarket fence for the Festool table saw. Is it any good? No idea. Let's find out. So welcome back to the Woodgrafter. Today on the Woodgrafter we're going to have a look at this new fence system from benchdogs.co.uk known as the CSC SYS Fence. This is an aftermarket fence for the Festool CSC SYS 50EBI table saw. And if you've seen my reviews recently, you know I was surprised that Festool don't have a repeatable stop solution here on their saw. And if you watch the video I made on creating a quick picture frame on this saw to see how accurate it was, you'll know I use a scrap of NDF and some clips to actually jury rig some sort of stop for myself. Now this claims to solve that problem for us, and I was super excited when Ralph reached out from Benchdogs and said, "Hey Andy, I'm going to send you over one of our fence systems, have a look and see what you think, because it solves that problem that you've been talking about." Awesome. So thank you to Benchdogs, thank you to Ralph as always for supporting the channel and sponsoring it. And in full disclosure, I have not paid for this fence system. Obviously I paid for the table saw with my own money, but I haven't paid for this fence system whatsoever. And as always, I'm under no obligation to like this or give it a positive review. So I'm just sharing information, because if you've got one of these, there's a good chance you're thinking about one of these. So in this video, we'll start off by looking at the different options for buying this thing, what you get in the kit and the price point of those kits. We'll then set it up and you can see how we put that in place. We'll then calibrate it, super easy, but it's worth calibrating to get an accurate cut, and then we'll put it through its paces in a number of different configurations to see what we actually think. So with that said, let's make a start. What are the options and how much does it cost us? So the fence comes in one of three lengths: 330mm, 625mm or 1000mm. Now you can buy these in kits. So the first kit you can buy is a 330 kit, 330mm, and in that kit you're going to get a 330mm fence, you're going to get a CSC adapter plate, you're going to get a flag stop that comes in two parts, couple of M6 thumb screws and associated nuts, and a guard lifting device. Now that's going to cost you £63.60. Now the prices are correct as of October 2023. You can also buy a 625 kit, and in that kit you're going to get the 625mm fence, you're going to get the CSC adapter plate, you're going to get the flag stop, you're going to get the two M6 thumb screws and associated nuts, and the guard lift. But you're also going to get in this kit an additional piece, and this piece here is a support bracket, and we'll look at that further down the line. Now that kit, including the support bracket, is going to cost you £87.60, again October 2023. And no surprise, the final kit you can buy is the 1000mm kit, which comes with a 1000mm fence, it comes with the CSC adapter plate, it comes with a flag stop, it comes with the thumb screws, the guard lift and the support bracket, and all of that will cost you £102, again October 2023. Now the good news is that all this gubbins here works on all the fences, so you only need to buy one kit and then you can add the fences on as your needs change in your workshop. And you can buy these fences separately. So the 330mm fence will cost you £12, the 625mm fence would cost you £30, and the 1000mm fence will cost you £44.40. You also get at the moment some goodies, so you get a Benchdogs Tools air freshener, you get a Benchdogs Tools keyring, and you get a Benchdogs sticker that we can put on our wall. Now, not coming in the kit, but is worth buying, is this 1mm setup block. And Benchdogs do a full range of these machinist setup blocks. This is the 1mm one. And if you were to buy this separately, it'll cost you £4.80, but it doesn't come in the kit. But you'll see shortly that's a very, very worthwhile addition to your kit. This is available now for pre-order, and it will start to ship on the 10th of November 2023. And don't forget to use the code, the Woodgrafter, at checkout, and you'll get 5% off your purchase, not just of this, but of anything in the benchdogs.co.uk range. So make a note of that code, the Woodgrafter. So now we understand what we get in the kit, let's set this up and put it on the table saw. Now we're obviously replacing the factory fit fence here from Festool. So first thing is to remove that fence. On the back of the fence here we have this thumb screw. Just undo that and the fence will slide out. Now there is a T-nut here on the back of this one, an M6 T-nut, and we don't need that, but equally we don't want to lose it. So I'm just going to slide it into there for safekeeping. I'm just going to put this on one side so we don't lose track of that. We then take the CSC adapter plate, and you can see it's got some cutouts or some indents on the back here, and they engage with these things on this fence. So we're still going to use this backing fence, and we're still going to use the existing M6 thumb screw from Festool. That slots into place, and that screw just simply engages and tightens down like so. We then take the two thumb screws and slot them through the top holes. We'll look at the bottom holes in a second, but for now the top holes are fine. And then just quickly put back on the M6 nuts that came with the kit. And then your fence will simply slot into position. Like so. And there you go, you now have an alternative fence on your table saw. Simple as that. To tighten it to position, you just simply tighten up on those two nuts and that's all good. Now it's worthwhile having a look at the fence. And you can see it's actually got two gauges on. This is going to be the same whether it's imperial or the metric, obviously one's in inches, one's in centimetres and millimetres. But you can see the top gauge is facing up and the bottom gauge is facing down, which is really useful because typically you're going to be using the saw in this dimension, and when you look down it's very easy to read that bottom gauge, so that's really quite good. And I do love that sort of detail that Benchdogs do take to their products. Now we do need to assemble the flag stop. It comes in two parts, not hard, just take away that nut, pull one washer off it, put it in that orientation, put the washer back on. Now this is a 10mm captive nut, you might just be able to see the blue collar inside there. You want to tighten it so you can still move the flag stop, but it's not loose, so just a bit of an interference fit like that. And then that slots into the top channel. And now it's as simple as taking your flag, setting it on the distance you want, and you've now got a repeatable stop. Now if you look at the way that Benchdogs have cut their fences, you can see that there's one here, then there's 9 increments there, and with a 1mm stop block that would make the 10. So this side of your 1mm shim is the 0 point. So you take the 1mm shim, obviously it's not got to be a Benchdogs 1mm shim, rest it onto the tooth, slide the fence up till it rests against the 1mm shim and lock it down. And that's now give you a 1mm gap between the blade and the end of your fence, and just nip that down and lock it into position. So that now means, in theory, if I were to set my stop here at 180mm, the gap between that flag stop and the outside edge of that tooth should indeed be 180mm. And we can test that by, no surprise, cutting something. So So in theory, this should now be 180 millimeters. And it is indeed 180 millimeters. So that would seem to work incredibly well. When you take this out, as long as you don't move that fence, then that is calibrated already. So you've not got to do that 1 millimeter setup every single time. If you do drop the fence off for a longer fence, obviously you need to recalibrate for that 1 millimeter. Now I want to talk about the guard. I'm going to drop the guard on and we're going to see how the fence functions with the guard. I do love the ability to be able to change the guard from the top of the table. When we made that last test cut, we set a height of 30 millimeters on the blade here. And you can see that the guard is going to foul the fence. So with this particular style of fence, you've got to raise a height of 36 millimeters or above, and then you see your fence will clear the guard. And as it goes through, it will push those out of the way. Now, as you come back, you can start to see it does sometimes foul the fence. It just catches every now and then. And that's what this little thing here is about. That simply clips on the end here, and you bring it up to the end of your plate, and now as you come back, that just pushes the guard out of the way, and that gives you a very, very, very smooth action. Now, a number of people have asked me about dust collection with the guard in place, because if you've seen the other videos I've made on this table saw, I've not been overly impressed with the dust collection. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's a lot better than any other table saw I've used, but it's not perfect, and I like perfection. But people said to me, hey Andy, with the guard in place, surely your dust collection is going to improve. I don't know, I said, so let's find out. So I've got a scrap of 25mm MDF. Yes, it's the same offcut we used on the picture frame on a previous video. And this scrap is round about 44.5mm long. So let's bring it down to somewhere around about, I don't know, 42mm. So let's drop off this fence, because we know it's not long enough. We'll come in with the longer fence. Like so. We'll use our setup block to give us that 1mm gap again. So that took about, what, less than a minute to change the fence over, and we've got all the functionality that we need again. Just drop back in our flag stop, and let's set a distance on the flag stop of 41. Now, as you can see, all the weight is on this side, so this would have a habit of tipping over, and if that was longer, you could see that's going to be a problem, and that's where this little beastie comes in. Again, same sort of principle. It's got the long elongated T-nut here. Loosen that off a little bit, and then that slides into there. Bring it to the end of the stock, and we'll lock that in place. And then you can use this thumb screw here just to make sure that it's sitting level, and that's now supporting that stock quite nicely. Obviously, with this fence you can still come in and clamp your workpiece, so I'm flush against this fence here, and I'm up to the stop, and I can lock that into place perfectly. I've dropped the dust collection on. I'm going to trigger the Bluetooth, so let's see whether this is good. And we were looking for a distance of 410. And we have 410. So we know it's cutting accurately. But dust collection is still not what I expect. I've still got dust here from that simple cut, and I did notice not clouds, but I did notice dust being kicked back to me. So it hasn't really made a huge difference. So those people who are asking me about dust collection because you wanted to use this on site, and a site in your case being a customer's house, then yeah, you still do get dust here, so you're still going to get some cleanup going on. Now hopefully you remember that when we first dropped the plate onto the mitre, there was 2 sets of holes, and we've been working on the top holes. But you can change the orientation of the fence by using these bottom holes. And so your scale still makes sense, put the Benchdogs logo away from here, and then your 1 is starting near the blade for calibration. Again, come in with your 1mm stop block, rest it against the teeth, and just nip that down. Don't drop your stop block, and tighten those down. And now once again, this should be nicely calibrated. The good thing about the blade in this orientation is you're going to get much better clearance on your fence. So I can now drop this down to 14mm. So as long as the guard is 14mm, your fence is then going to clear it. Now at that point, this little debris is of no use to you because it won't fit on its wrong orientation. But you don't tend to need it because it's not catching at that point. So your fence will work incredibly well here too. Now you can still go ahead and use this slot here for your flag stop. But where we've been using that in this orientation, just turn it round and drop it in. And you'll notice that it's got a long side here and a short side. So just by turning that round, that short side now works well for us. So we've also got the flag stop here using these scales. Now there is one downside of this particular fence system. It's actually longer, considerably longer. Even on the smallest fence, it's longer than the standard Festool offering. So this will not store in the lid of the sustainer in the same way that the Festool one does. For me in a workshop, it's not a problem because I don't tend to use the lid for storage. But if you were out and about on site, just bear that in mind. You need to find some sort of storage solution. Now, I would not be surprised at some point in the future if we don't see a version of this with fence coming into sections, all that storing away into a standard sustainer. We've already seen that solution on the Mark II fence that Benchdogs do, where you can have a Mark II fence in a sustainer. That would be a really, really good addition, I think. Cut into chunks with all this fixing kit all stored away inside a sustainer. I'll just put them on my wall and then I can just grab them as required, but just bear that in mind. So there you go, that's pretty much it. That is the Benchdogs Tools CSC SYS Fence from, obviously, Benchdogs. And it's the aftermarket fence for the Festool CSC SYS 50EBI table saw. Now, to be honest with you, I'm still super surprised that when Festool designed this bench saw, they didn't put a solution for a repeatable stop on the mitre gauge itself. It's such an obvious thing to need on this one that I think that was a huge design oversight. But thank you, Benchdogs, for bringing this to the market so quickly. It solves a problem that did exist on this one, and it solves it incredibly well at a really great price point. Hope you found this useful. If you want to buy this, it's available for pre-order now over at the benchdogs.co.uk website. At checkout, use the code TheWoodgrafter and grab yourself a 5% discount on any of the Benchdogs products. So, look after yourselves, take care, and I'll see you soon on the Woodgrafter.